Hex, Pulsechain, PulseX. I have to make this a little bit smaller here. A system designed to pump itself. All right, so Hex. Hexkin spent $20 million on gas fees in 2021 alone. Hex is a better store of value than Bitcoin. Innovation is a new meta of Bitcoin miners, and we call them the staker class. In Bitcoin, you mine and you sell down the price. In Hex, the miners are the stakers, and instead of selling down the price, you're locked in, and so it's better for the price appreciation. And on this graph, you can see the blue and green are Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the purple here is Hex. And 1,000 days into the Hex project, it's doing what Bitcoin and Ethereum did, except it's doing it faster, and that's because of the Richard Hart Pumpamentals, the innovation of locking up so the price can't be sold down, because when your funds are locked and the market's going down, you can't get emotional and sell, which is typically what happens. So Pulsechain, it's a better functioning Ethereum. Hundreds of millions of transactions have already been done on the testnet. We're getting really close. I know everyone's been saying mid-May, and we're kind of at that. It's kind of becoming mid-May now. You know, it doesn't mean it's going to come out in May, but the testnet's functioning great. You can use it right now. If you haven't used the testnet, I would recommend using the testnet now, because once Pulsechain comes out, doing stuff on the main net is going to require real money, and you could potentially make some mistakes. So if you've never used something like Pulsechain, it's great to experiment now when there's really no downside. You can't really lose money. One NFT project last week shut down the whole entire Ethereum network. It's the most popular NFT project in the world, called the Bored Ape Yacht Club. But just one project was able to crash the whole network. And for a decentralized global blockchain, you don't want one project having the potential to ruin your whole network. I know you guys saw all over Twitter, everyone was complaining about these gas fees. It was all because of one project. Pulsechain solves that. Pulsechain is not the first innovation of its kind. I show this graphic all the time because I think it's an amazing graphic by Hex McKenzie. The great thing about Pulsechain is there's projects similar to it, but nothing really quite as good as it, in my opinion. And here are some of the things like Pulsechain that have launched. And you can see the average percentage gain on a project like this, 65,000%, which translates to a 650x on average in 1.4 years. And a lot of these projects, like Solana, for example, Solana has gone down just the first quarter of this year, like 2 or 3 times. Last year went down a handful of times as well. And even though it goes down all the time, it still did a 1000x. I don't expect Pulsechain to go down. Look at what Hex has done in 2.5 years. It's never had an issue. And I know people are impatient. It's been a year of waiting now. But the last thing you want to do is launch a project or launch something like an Ethereum fork and have it be unstable, because then users are not going to flock to your ecosystem. So the longer it goes on waiting for Pulsechain, honestly, the better, in my opinion. I know we all want it to come out, but you see how much hype is building up as we prolong this launch. I'm not sure if it's some Richard game theory behind the scenes. I don't think it's ready and he's just holding it back. But the longer we wait, I mean, maybe it could just be me looking at it glass half full, but you're starting to see more people on Twitter talk about this. One of the biggest influencers in the Hex ecosystem now is at Whale Chart. This guy has like 110,000 followers, and in the past like week or two, he's just started becoming a Hexican. I'm actually going to do a Twitter Spaces with Whale Chart tomorrow. Crypto Stylist, you should definitely join that if you're available.
I would love to.
But I just think it signals the general opinion on Hex and Pulsechain. We're seeing in real time people starting to adjust to these Richard Hart projects, and Pulsechain is just going to legitimize Hex more, in my opinion. So how high can Pulsechain go? I mean, I'd be happy with a 50x. I mean, think about in the traditional markets, how do you, where do you 10x your money? You know, if you get a 10x on Wall Street in 5 years, that's legendary, right? And these are hundreds of X's. So I know it's crypto, but we got to keep our expectations in reality, and if you 50x your money, that's wonderful. Could Pulsechain do more than that? 100%. Will it do more than that? No one knows. No one has a crystal ball, but just look at what the competitors do and factor in that Richard Hart game theory. What do you
It's
think
really
about this?
interesting. It's really interesting that you say that because, I think it's good that you're taking a stance that's a little bit more like, let's wait and see, and a little bit more conservative. But just looking at the data, Ethereum from that start to this all-time high, which took about 7 years, it did go up 14. It was a 14,000 time return. And Pulse is a fork of Ethereum, but faster, cheaper, proof of stake. So I think that, it's good to it's going to take time. It's going to be very volatile, and we don't know because nobody has a crystal ball. But I do think I feel quite bullish about it because I think that it's a really good product. And the fact that he's done, to your point about Solana, that has gone down so many times, Richard's done, this is a third test net that he has been testing for a long time. There are no other projects I know out there that have public test nets for this long and really kind of debug everything, which gives me a lot of confidence once it launches that it's really going to be ready.
Yeah, exactly. And Phantom too. I think Phantom has something called a T-share, FTM. And I don't know if they got that from Hex, but I know Phantom I don't think I think the X's are down now. I think it's been a pretty bad 2 months for Phantom holders, but yeah, look at the competitors and then factor in the Richard Hart game theory. It really seems like a no-brainer. And now PulseX, the decentralized exchange of Pulsechain. So you have sexes and you have dexes. Think Coinbase, that's a centralized exchange. A decentralized exchange, PulseX or Uniswap. PulseX is actually a fork of Uniswap. With a DEX, you hold your keys, you have more security and less risk. On a decentralized exchange, we do peer-to-peer trading. There's no middleman. That's how trading was meant to be. Trading was never meant for there to be a central party that skims off your money. It should just be two parties trading their values, and that's why DEXs are so popular in crypto. There's many DEXs on Ethereum. Uniswap's the largest and the first one. Look at how their token did. And their token didn't even launch with the project. It came out much later, and the token doesn't really even have any utility. And I don't know how many X's it did, but it did a lot of X's. Sushi
It's
Swap.
also inflationary. It's also inflationary, whereas PulseX is deflationary. I think that's a really important distinction.
Yeah,
That's in our favor.
that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I didn't really even know Uni was inflationary, but that's a whole nother reason why. Look at what Uni did, and it's inflationary. Imagine if it wasn't inflationary.
Exactly.
Then the creator of Sushi Swap, Chef Nami, it's interesting. He created Sushi Swap, and then he rug pulled the project, or tried to. And even through all of that FUD, imagine Richard Hart attacks PulseX, which he never would do. Never say never, but I don't think that's any, no one really realistically thinks he would do that. And Sushi Swap still did phenomenally even with this, and that goes to show that even with FUD like this, decentralized exchanges have product market fit, and if they work well, they're gonna perform well in price.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's multiple DEXs on Ethereum, and there will be multiple DEXs on Pulse. So there's going to be multiple DEXs on Pulsechain. And guys, sometimes I watch my last video, I say Pulsechain when I mean PulseX, and I mix them up sometimes. So don't think I'm just getting it wrong. There's a lot. It's easy to mix up Pulsechain and PulseX. So why will PulseX be number one? Well, there's a thing called the automated market maker bot. And as soon as Pulsechain launches, it's going to go to Uniswap. It's going to go to Sushi Swap. It's going to go to all these DEXs. And it's going to drain all their funds, and it's going to put it into PulseX. Why? To make PulseX the number one hub for trading right off the bat. Why would you do that? Because Richard, his product is PulseX, and he obviously favors that. And by draining the liquidity of all these other competing exchanges, the only way they're going to get liquidity is by people coming from Ethereum and putting money into these exchanges. Now, why would they go to the empty exchanges when you already have an extremely liquid one like PulseX with volume magnitudes above these other exchanges? And I don't think they will. And that's really an important thing to notice about PulseX, because it's going to be the most liquid exchange right off the bat, and that's going to do great things for the price.
Mm.
And this has never occurred before. I say that Pulsechain is a case study for future crypto projects in PulseX, because there's a lot of things happening now between the airdrop, the automated market maker bot draining all the other exchanges. People ask about like, oh, what's going to happen with PulseX? What's going to happen with PLS? There's so many innovations and first times happening that it's really hard for anyone to know. And that's also why it's so exciting, because if it does function and work flawlessly, the dividends are gonna be immaculate. Many people's full-time income in crypto is a result of yield farming on dexes. There's people that just live off crypto yield. If you get a certain amount of capital in crypto and you're smart with the DeFi ecosystems, and it takes a lot of time, there's a steep learning curve with this stuff, but a lot of people do this full time and they're able to make insane returns doing nothing, right? They just hang out all day and their money makes money. And these people are going to flock to PulseX because every other DeFi yield farming product that they've used, they have to put up all their own capital. When you yield farm, you have to typically in a liquidity pool put up 2 different tokens on each side. In PulseX, they're going to get half of their tokens already. And I'm not a professional yield farmer, but I have done a little bit of it. And I know that these people that make crypto yield are going to see the yield generating opportunities on PulseX, and they're going to see that free airdrop, and half the pairs are already filled out. And if you don't yield farm, this might not make sense to you, but this is going to attract so many people that a lot of people haven't even heard about Pulsechain yet. They haven't even heard about PulseX. But these yield farmers, one thing and the only thing in crypto they like is money. And forget Richard Hart, forget the politics, forget Hex being a scam. These people are going to come over and they're going to yield farm, and that's going to be crazy for PulseX. A quick word from Gerardo, a tweet 2 days ago. He tweeted, PulseX could be the biggest yield farm in history. Kind of like what I was just saying, these yield farmers are going to flock over here because there's never been an airdrop like this before, where every single ERC20 they have is going to get a free pair as a PRC20. And the effect of this cannot be understated. Would you agree with that, Crypto?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the getting half the pair for free this is the first time that we'll ever see this in history. And to see for the people, especially as you say, the people who do the liquidity farming, they make a living off of it. They make it their business to find out about these kind of opportunities. I think they're going to be quite aggressive about it. It'll be really interesting to see how quickly that catches on and how quickly they action that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long I was muted there, but hopefully you guys heard that.
No, I heard everything. Yeah.
How high can PulseX go? Another great graphic from Hex McKenzie. So there's been other decentralized exchanges before, and I'm just showing you this graphic to give you a estimate of how well these things do. Uniswap, for example, their token did a 100x in about 2/3 of a year, and it has no utility. It's inflationary, and it launched after the project even came out. So you see, and someone asked me a great question about this after my last video when I talked about these, and maybe you have to answer this, Crypto Stylist, or someone in the chat does. But do you guys know of any layer 2 solutions that have failed? Because I always show these graphics and they show amazing returns. And someone was like, well, are you aware of any that launched and didn't do this? And I was like, well, not really, because I probably didn't hear about them because they failed. So I just thought it was a good question. I really don't have the answer to that.
I think that there are some that have launched and maybe not had as high as returns. And I'd have to look into it because I remember looking through all the kind of layer two, like the exchanges, and seeing what kind of returns they're getting to kind of figure out, about PulseX, how we can kind of make an estimate based on historical data. And so, but there are some that haven't been as successful as Uniswap and as PancakeSwap. Those are the two, I think, highest returns that I've seen on a decentralized exchange.
Yeah. Now, if that wasn't good enough, we have Richard Hart at the helm. There's a saying: invest in founders, not their ideas.
Yeah.
I'd say this goes. I don't do stocks and a lot of traditional investments, but in NFT projects and in crypto, I think a lot of it goes back to the founders and in traditional
Mhm.
markets.
Mm.
Invest in people, not necessarily ideas. A lot of people can have ideas, but can the founders deliver? Can the leadership team deliver? And the good thing about this project is we have a leader that has a proven track record. Everyone called Hex a scam 2.5 years ago. If I had heard about, I didn't hear about Hex back then. I was just getting into crypto. Had I heard about Hex, I probably would have thought it was a scam. I thought
Mm.
more than I actually knew, because Richard himself said he marketed Hex as a scam to attract people that typically would get scammed, to prevent them from getting scammed, which is
Hmm.
very ironic, but it makes sense why people would think it's a scam. Now, 2.5 years later, after all this success, how can you still call it a scam? It's a lot of pride and ego and hate for missing out on what could have been, I think. But if you call Hex a scam, like a lot of people say, oh, Hex is a Ponzi scheme, right? And this is just the most unintelligent thing you can say, because you look up a definition of a Ponzi scheme, it literally is not this, right? You make your own money in Hex.
Yeah.
It's not like a redistribution of wealth. If you doubt
And you
Richard
have
Hart,
control. You have
go ahead.
control of your own money. You have control of your own money as well. I think that's the thing that makes it, fundamentally different. You can take it out at any time. You determine how long you want to put it in, how long you want to stake. So you're completely in control when you have Hex. So that's like the opposite of what that does not, to your point, does not fit at all the definition of a Ponzi scheme. I think also, to add to your point about like you invest in founders, I also believe that you invest in the community, and the community, because the community is what supports it, who's loyal, who will protect the project, and will also really push the project forward. And if you look at our community, what's really amazing, we've done everything from conferences to world tours where we're onboarding people. There's a documentary being made by like an Emmy award winning team. There's like so much activity. There's a bank there's gonna be a bank. There's a like a grayscale type fund. There's so many different protocols that are launching within the ecosystem to support the ecosystem by hexagons. This is the strongest community that I've ever seen in a cryptocurrency. I can't name one. Definitely not ETH, definitely not Bitcoin. There are maxis out there, but there's not a community that really like actually creates things and builds things to support the whole ecosystem. And I think it's going to be a completely vertical structure within, I would say, the next 5 years. And once we have a wallet, fiat on and off ramps, and I think that that's going to be the point where we really see the tipping point where we see it go like super viral.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, and Hex,
Yeah.
it's almost like a family, not even a community. In From the outside, people call a cult, and I can kind of understand that, because people that love Hex, it's almost very like tribalistic.
Yeah.
Anyone that calls Hex a scam, a lot of people attack them, which isn't always the best strategy. But when you make a lot of people financially free, when you give people gains, they typically tend to like that stuff. And with the 15-year stakes, the community is not going anywhere. The amount of
Yeah.
OG hexagons that are locked in for 15 years is a lot. And these people are going to be here as the community grows. And we still only have 95,000 stakers. Compare that to Shiba Inu or SafeMoon, right? These products that were able to go extremely viral very quickly. Shiba's the only token that outperformed Hex, but that's a dog coin. It's a meme. Like, how were you ever going to make a play on that? That's just, congrats to people that made money on Shiba. But if those tokens can get to 1 million plus holders, there's nothing that's stopping Hex from doing that. And if you doubt Richard Hart, watch his content before he got into crypto. A lot of people that are insecure. They see his watch collection, they see his flexing, and they can't really see past that. And I understand where these people are coming from, but at the end of the day, that is rooted in their own insecurities and things that they lack, that they can't critically think about what Richard's actually talking about. They get so offended that this man wants to show off his watches, and they don't even like dig deeper, which, you know, maybe that's a way for Richard to alienate people that he doesn't want in the ecosystem, but it really just takes someone with some self-confidence that can see past the BS and see what Richard's actually about. And before Richard even did crypto, he was doing videos on YouTube, stop gambling, how to make better apologies, how to like improve your life, right? He traveled for 10 years, lived in hotels, and, you know, got that out of his system. But every person needs purpose, and this is where Richard found his purpose. And you can see it by the videos before he got into crypto. His self-help book. Like, this man genuinely cares about improving other people's lives. And he's done that so many times that now he just wants his recognition. And people do not like, especially insecure people, they don't like people like Richard Hart that love themselves that much. Like Richard, one could call him a narcissist, but that would mean he doesn't like have empathy for other people. I think he's just obsessed with himself, and I can't blame him, because look at all the great things he's done for people, and then to still be called a scammer, like I feel for him so bad.
I think this is what I think, that before, and he said this, I've actually heard him, I'm quoting, like paraphrasing what he said in interviews, is that before he dressed more normally and was more humble and modest and just, I just want to help people, I just want to do good projects, and he was very kind of more understated. And he's like, and nobody would gave him 2 seconds, and no one gave him the time of day, and he was completely ignored. And it wasn't until he started flashing the watches and the Louis Vuitton and the unboxing videos and just how much money he was making that all of a sudden he got so much attention. He got a lot more followers that way. So he's like, you know what? He's like, I have to market this thing. I'm the face of it. I have to market it. And if by doing all these things, I'm going to get a lot more people looking at me and then looking into Hex and then possibly investing, then that's what he's doing. So you can like it or not like it, but it's not really our place to judge. He's just doing what he needs to do to market. You know, it's like Elon Musk. What he does is like he says really crazy, outrageous, controversial things because he knows that's going to get attention and it's going to go viral. And that's how he markets his products.
Kind of like Donald Trump too, right?
Yep,
Like,
totally.
not to compare the two, but like he's
Yeah.
like, you can, politics aside, people will call Trump an idiot, but the way he like manipulated the media to get all this press and stuff, like, it's what's that saying? Bad media, something like it doesn't matter if it's
There's
good
no
press or
such
bad
thing as
press.
bad press. There's no such
Exactly.
thing as bad press. Yeah, all
Yeah.
press is good press. Yeah.
And look at like that picture Richard took in his Gucci sweatsuit on the airplane. Did you see that recently? And everyone was memeing it, even the haters. And it's like, when Richard takes that photo, he knows what he's doing, right?
It's like the Burberry bonnet that he put on. I mean, how many people now like put the bonnet on their profile pictures, and
Right.
he did it so it would go viral, and it did.
Yeah. So from the all-time low, Hex did a 10,000x. $100 at that low point made you $1 million. 1,000 would have made you 10 million. $10,000 would have made you 100 million. Now, people say Hex did a 10,000x. It's a little misleading because it didn't do that from launch. I mean, still from launch, I don't know if it was at 1,000x or 2,000x. I don't think a ton of people did buy this absolute bottom, but if they did, the returns are absolutely absurd. And yeah, there's a proven track record behind this product. A little bit more alpha. PLS and PLSX are heavily centralized. Hex is too, right? Richard owns, or not Richard, the OA owns, for all these projects, upwards of 80-90% of the supply. Which a lot of people, when they look at tokens, they want to see, okay, how spread out are these currencies, right? If you have a holder of a token that has 80% of the supply, typically I would look at that and say, oh, that's a big liability because this player in the market could totally wreck the price. Whenever you hold 80%, 90% of the supply, that's typically a red flag. That's what a lot of
Yeah.
people miss in Hex. However, it's only a bad thing if that market actor is a bad market actor. Richard wants to be famous. He does not want to be infamous. That's one of my favorite sayings about Richard, because if he did ruin his own projects, he would just be hated even more. And you can see it in his streams. You can see it when he talks about his legacy. He does not, like, I truly believe he does not want infamy. He wants fame. He's all about his legacy. And obviously, I'm Hex Pulse Radio. I'm probably a little bit biased, but you watch his content before crypto and you put his personality aside and just really listen to the substance of what he's putting out there, he genuinely wants to help people, and he's all about his legacy. So why would you ruin your project when all you care about is legacy? And he doesn't even need the money, right? He just raised what, 1.6 billion for Pulse. And I heard Maddie Allen talking about this, and I think Maddie's a programmer. He knows some kind of developing skills, I think. And he was saying, and I don't know if this is fact or not, but I don't think he would say it. I mean, actually, Maddie has had some hot takes, but he said not more than $4 or $5 million has been spent on this project. So,
Wow.
Richard, he's more than financially set. He was before crypto, and now he's even better. So, like, there is no need. Once you have that much money, what's the point in getting more when you're all about your legacy?
He really wants to change. He wants to change the world with, by changing the money, because it's the whole system. So fiat is where, I mean, the general population's in danger of people who hold fiat. And then within crypto, the cryptocurrency, there's so many projects that either are dated or really deeply flawed. And so he's come up with the best products out there within crypto. So he's just trying to, like, literally, once you fix the money, you really can fix everything else, but you got to fix that first. And that's really what he's trying to do. So it's like he has a really clear purpose that he's after, which is why, I trust him and believe in him. It's why all the hexagons do. All of us are, we don't doubt that what his intentions are, because he's already shown us through his action and through everything you just summarized. That's just the proof right there. And at a certain point, if you don't believe, then don't get in it. But you can get wrecked somewhere else. But this is, I think that it's I guess for somebody coming from the outside, it's hard to believe, but if you just think about it logically, to your point, why would you wreck your own project? It makes no sense at all whatsoever, and he doesn't need the money. So
Yeah,
he's crypto. His bags are huge.
Yeah, you would rug pull if you needed the money, but when you care only about legacy and you're already rich, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And then you look at everything going on in the world with freedom, and that's one of the best things about the Hex community. There's a lot of similar thoughts in regards to freedom and like self-sovereignty. And you look at the sacrifice phases, whether it was freedom of speech, freedom of movement.
Yeah.
A great thing that Richard said was the only difference between being in prison and not being in prison is freedom of movement, something like that, right? And you look at all these shutdowns, and people don't realize, like, when people are in fear, that's the easiest point of control. And the Mexican community is all about giving not just the rights back, but like the power to the people, which I think is, I mean, that what could be more honorable than that? And
I agree.
the top 10 wallets for PLS and PLSX, they both own like 90% of all the tokens, right? The people that are in the top 10, these are multi-million-dollar sacrifices. These people are not looking to just make a 2x or a 3x. If they're investing millions of dollars into a project that's not even out, these are people that obviously believe in Richard's track record and what he can deliver. And when you have that centralized ownership of people that believe and they're not here to sell early, diamond hands or whatever you want to call it, there's not going to be a lot on the market, and that's just going to allow the price to pump. And the question isn't, will you have gains? I mean, some people actually don't even know if they're going to get their money back, newcomers and stuff like that. People who have been in the Hexkin community, we obviously believe in this. It's not about how many gains you're going to have. It's how long are you going to be able to hodl and through how many dips. You know,
Yeah.
Hex doubled 13 times. How many doubles were people able to hold on to, right? Unless you were
Yeah.
staked fully, it's very hard to hold on to your gains just
Mm.
after a 10x, let alone a 100x, right? And so it's not going to be, are there going to be gains? It's, are you, how much are you going to experience of the gains?
And can you make it through the dips? Because I think it's going to be quite volatile, for the first, I mean, for a while. It's going to go, when you see a huge pump, then it's going to recalibrate. And I think that's going to be super extreme because it's a new project. So people just have to really kind of get their mind around that and just be prepared and not checking their wallet every day and the price every 5 minutes. And don't act like a trader, because I don't think this is the kind of project that you want to trade, especially in the first year, because you can make so many mistakes. It's so unpredictable, and I think that the volatility is gonna swing pretty extremely.
100%. Yeah, there's going to, like, Pulsechain could launch up 10x or something on launch, right?
Mhm.
And when you have an insane gain like that, there's going to be a correction. So dips are in the
Yep.
game, and those are just good opportunities, especially if you're not sacrificed for Pulsechain or PulseX. You're
Mm.
going to have opportunities after these massive pumps to get in. Um,
Yep.
and then the title of this was a system designed to pump itself. Pulsechain and PulseX together, because of the buy and burn in each transaction, a portion of that is burnt. Pulsechain and
Mhm.
PulseX together, as they grow, are gonna pump each other. And X was designed. Pulsechain, the idea behind Pulsechain was to free Hex users and also
Mhm.
Ethereum users. But so many of the sacrificers in Pulsechain and PulseX are aware of Hex. They might have missed it. But these
Mhm.
gains, not all of them, but a lot of these gains are going to funnel back into Hex because Hex is the store of value in this ecosystem. And I don't think a lot of people that are new to the system realize what that's going to do to Hex. And they're just kind of only looking at Pulsechain and PulseX. But it's going to do wonders for Hex as well.
Mhm. Mhm. It'll be interesting to see what happens with E-hex versus P-hex. I've seen so many videos and I still can't decide. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. This is a wait and see kind of situation. So, will they reach parity? If so, when? How will it be? How will the price of E-hex be in the beginning? When P-hex launches, is it going to be a little bit shaky? I don't know.
I think it'll
I
be
don't know
very
what you
shaky.
think.
I could see a lot of
Mm,
people dumping, a lot of people are holding eHex and they're waiting for
mhm,
Pulse Chain. And you could see eHex really take a hit on launch because there's going to be that whole copy of your pHex. Like the price
mhm,
could get cut in half, right? But you
mhm.
also have all those tokens on Pulse Chain now. So is it really getting cut in half?
Yeah. You get doubles. Yeah, you get the copy. So, mhm.
Yeah, and long term, I could see Pulse Hex outperforming eHex. I think Richard said this in his one of his past streams because someone new to the ecosystem with $500, why are they going to stake on Pulse Chain? Or sorry, why would they stake on Ethereum when they're going to lose 10% of all their capital in fees? A lot of newcomers aren't investing 100,000, $1 million. And so that's why people that are new to the ecosystem are going to be, and people like me and probably you who have been in the ecosystem are probably going to prefer to use pHex over eHex because who wants to pay fees, right?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.